When I was young, I used to think about God. I was 6, 7, 8 years old, but I used to think about dying also. And I couldn't understand how could a loving, good God bring my being into existence and then one day just snuff it out. That didn't seem, I couldn't wrap my mind around that. And I questioned the goodness of God. When I was young, my family sent my brother and I to a Reformed synagogue, and we heard about Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the patriarchs and the matriarchs in first grade. Then we heard the same story in second grade. Then we heard the same story in third grade, and that's when things began to be a problem for me, because I knew that God, by definition, was eternal, and I knew He was also omnipresent. And I was wondering, why aren't you telling me how to talk to God? I wanted to talk to God the way Abraham talked to God. So I concluded that there was something either missing in my religion or it was just really fairy tales. And so in third grade, I became a Hebrew school dropout. Shortly thereafter, I started going to a private boys' school, and we sang Christian hymns and Christmas carols, and I loved those. I never got the sense that I needed to know Jesus in a personal way, but I found those carols and the hymns very, very moving. I went to college during the 60s and 70s in Washington, D.C. There was a time of great upheaval in the United States. There were assassinations every couple of years. John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Martin Luther King. And there were race riots every summer. There would be reporting from different cities about race riots. And then, of course, there was the Vietnam War also that tore the country apart. There was just seemed like there was violence everywhere. Then there were Eastern religions coming into America. And then there was, of course, the Hippie Movement with its promise of peace and love and sexual freedom, which was really just promiscuity. And none of those promises ever fulfilled me in any way, and there was an emptiness in my life. I moved away, I got a job, I moved to Arizona, and I was looking for a job one day, and my car overheated. And when I went to take the radiator cap off, a geyser of boiling water exploded on me and burned me on my chest and my face. And I had a thought when that happened that I had never had before. I don't want to go to hell. As a Jewish person, I never had that thought before. But so while I was recuperating, I thought, I've looked at everything else, all these Eastern religions. I'll buy a Bible, I'll read the New Testament and see what that's about. And there was many things for me to learn and unlearn as I did that. I had to learn that this was a Jewish book. It all took place in Israel. He was Jewish, his followers were Jewish, his family was Jewish. This was not an anti-Semitic book. And the more I read about him, the attraction and the appreciation and the love for him just began to grow within my heart. But I didn't know that I needed to have a personal relationship with him. So with all my drug usage, I was increasingly rootless and confused, and I decided that I was going to start traveling around the country with a backpack, searching for God. And I met some Christians in Harvard Square, and they began to witness to me, but I said, thanks, I'm Jewish, I'm out of there. And I got a bus to Oregon from Boston. Oregon was a hippie place. I wanted to go there. When the bus pulled into Des Moines, Iowa, I got off, and a day later, I made a semi-serious attempt at suicide. And after sending me to the hospital, I was sent to a local rescue mission. And I heard that the director of the rescue mission was getting into his office. He had a reverend in front of his name, and I remember thinking, I don't care what this guy is, I got to talk to somebody. And he began to counsel me and told me that the Lord wanted to save me. And he asked his secretary to come in, and we all joined hands, and we began to pray, and I was crying out to God, and they were crying out to Jesus, and our prayers just seemed to blend. And at the end of our prayer time, I said, thank you, thanks a lot. I walked out of his office, and it was the most glorious, sunny day I had ever seen. I felt like I was walking on air. And all of a sudden I had the realization that the God of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, who I had wanted to know way back in Sunday school when I was 8, 9, and 10 years old, was alive, and he had his hand on my life, and he had revealed himself to me. The connection with God that I always wanted to have came when I embraced Yeshua, Jesus, as the Messiah. He was the missing link that allowed me to come into the presence of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God that I had wanted to know personally so many years ago.